Welcome into Palmetto Sports Daily. Julia, Kevin, and Teagan here with you on a Tuesday, and we've got plenty to talk about a number of different things, but most prominently the WNBA draft last night, and 3 former Gamecocks are selected to 3 different teams. And hey, my favorite fact from last night is they were taken by teams that already have Gamecocks on the roster. So really exciting that they get to start this next chapter and have some familiar faces once they get to where they're going. So off the top, Raven Johnson picked number 10 overall by the Indiana Fever. Lots of interesting storylines there with Aaliyah Boston there. They got to be on the roster together for 2 seasons. Early in Raven's career, the 2022 National Championship victory, and then the 2023 Final Four when they lost to Iowa, and now Fever teammate Caitlin Clark. So a lot of interesting things there. And then at number 13, Medina Okot. She goes to the Atlanta Dream, just the closest team to us here in Columbia. And Dawn Staley, she gets out to the Dream games all the time, so I know she'll be excited to see her there. And the Dream really have some interesting things going on now because they just traded for Angel Reese from the Chicago Sky, so got that interesting front court matchup to learn from there. And then they also have 2 Gamecocks there in Tahina Paopao and Alicia Gray. So that's waiting there. And then at number 20, Tanai Latson goes to the Los Angeles Sparks. It was a bit of a surprise that she dropped to the second round when she'd been projected as kind of a mid-first rounder in a lot of the mock drafts leading up to last night. But she goes 20th overall, and she'll go out to LA where Sanaya Fagan already is waiting with the Sparks. So really exciting for all 3 of them, and they were very happy that they got to hear their names called last night.
Yeah, Leah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell. I think I learned a lot from them. I'm gonna be a sponge. I'm probably gonna be a gnat too because I'm gonna ask them a lot of questions. I'm probably gonna get on their nerves too because of my personality. I like to joke a little bit, but honestly, they win. They like to win, and I think that's really big when looking at a program like that. And like I said, they have a chance of winning the WNBA, so I'm happy about that.
Just being here today, it means so much to me. And like just like you say, 6 years ago, I didn't see myself being here today, or I never dreamed myself being here today. I mean, my dream was to play pro or to play in the W, but I didn't know that it was going to be after 6 years. And if I would go back, I would tell my younger self, just so proud of her. She never gave up. She had to go through a lot and kept moving forward.
I was challenged on the court for sure this year. I feel like that's, the biggest takeaway, but I can, commend my resiliency and who I am as a person. I feel like has gotten a lot better mentally and physically. I went to South Carolina to become a pro and, get ready for the league. And I feel like I'm well prepared. I just got to go out there and be myself.
All right, so 3 Gamecocks heading to the league. Of course, that's half of the UCLA record that they set last night. 6 Bruins taken in the draft. Just a great draft across the board to watch. And Kevin, just what are we thinking as we look at these 3 and where they're headed?
Well, I thought the interesting thing was I really like the landing spots for all 3 of them. I think they're all in a good position. But what I wanted to ask both of you is which of the 3 do you think is the best landing spot, has the best kind of setup moving forward for success? And I think there is a right answer. But Julia, I'm going to go to you first.
Just off the rip, I'm going to say Okot just because of the way that they're set up there. They have plenty of guards, and then sliding Okot in there with Reese in the front court, I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch with that team. And I think there's a little bit more, question marks with the other 2 heading into camp, but I think Okot's going to be a great fit in Atlanta, Teagan.
Yeah, I was going to say Okot as well, and I'm glad that each of the, draftees got to go to a team with South Carolina ties. I'm sure that'll be very nice to have that connection there. But yeah, I think Medina will just shine there. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, the answer is Raven Johnson, actually, because she's put in a spot where her offense doesn't have to be something she's worried about going forward. She can just get the ball down low to Aaliyah Boston. She can get it over to Caitlin Clark anywhere on the court and make sure she's open for a shot. She's going to get open looks, and if she works on her jump shot a little bit, she's going to have a lot of opportunities to score. But mostly just distributing the ball in her defense is what she's really going to be known for there in Indiana. So I think that's the perfect landing spot for all the Gamecocks.
I really like that one too. I think it is going to be a good spot. I've seen a lot of discourse online in the last, 24 hours, or I guess it's not even been that long since she got picked up there. But just seeing how people are reacting to this pick and how she's going to fit in there. And, I'd like to think that it's going to be a good fit. I know a lot of people are questioning the history with Caitlin Clark and everything like that. But, that's going to be water under the bridge at this point. Like, they've all grown up and moved on from that 2023 Final Four. And I think Ravens you've seen how she's taken advantage of the opportunities in her career and everything that she's been able to do at the collegiate level. And this has been her dream for her entire life. So I don't see her, passing up any opportunity to do everything to her full extent and just, make the team and start making an impact in Indiana.
Yeah, and don't sleep on Latson either, because, having someone in there, whether she starts or not, she's the one, someone at the very worst, she's going to be able to come off the bench, play 16 to 18 minutes in a game and contribute 8 to 12 points. So that's someone, if you're a championship team, which I know LA wants to be right there, that's the kind of player you need, is someone who can come off the bench and just put up a bunch of points real quick in a short period of time.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to it. Of course, they don't have to wait too long before we see them getting out on the court. The WNBA season is not too far away, and so is our next block. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We move down to the high school level. I'm so excited, guys. There are times when all the hard work you put into life, into just one particular thing, when it finally pays off and just everything kind of comes together and it's just the perfect moment. I feel like I'm kind of going through that right now, because earlier this afternoon, the South Carolina High School League Executive Committee passed unanimously a proposal from the bracket committee to adjust the size of brackets, how schools qualify for the playoffs in each sport, and the size of certain championship events. So this is amazing. This is literally what I've been talking about since the show started over a year and a half ago. Multiple times per year I have gone into this. There's only two things I'm upset about with this. One, the fact that I'm not going to be able to complain about it anymore. And two, the fact that they didn't name it the Billadu provision or the Billadu something. Just throw my name on it somewhere, because I feel like I earned that with as much as we've talked about this over the last 18 months or whatever it has been. What we're looking at here from what the executive committee was talking about earlier this afternoon, we're looking at a minimum of 16 teams, a maximum of 24 teams at most levels. Certainly in the 3A and the 5A level, could be as many as 28 teams in the 2A and 4A level, and as many as 48 teams at the 1A level, because there's 65 teams at the 1A level when they make the realignment coming up next year. But we're talking about shortening the amount of rounds we have in the playoffs for most of the sports. You're talking, when you're looking at baseball and softball, maybe getting rid of the district championships and just breaking it down, and you could rank them 1 through 24 teams, and 9 through 24 will play a one-game elimination, and the other top 8 teams are going to get a bye. So this is everything I've been hoping for. This is everything I've been asking for from the high school league over the last 18 months. And Teagan, I'm literally just walking on air at this point.
Oh, I can tell. I think that they should have called it the Billado Bill. Bill, it fits. Anyways, my opinion on this, exactly. I'm really excited only because, the past few years that I've been covering, especially like high school football, all of a sudden when we've got a team in the playoffs that somehow got in with 1 or 2 region wins, it has never, ever made sense to me. Like that could, if they won one game all season and it happened to be a region game, sometimes they're able to get into the playoffs. It's silly. It is. Because then you watch them go to the playoffs and they get crushed like 60-7 if they were lucky enough to score at the end of the game. So yeah, I think this is super exciting. Julia, what do you think?
I said the same thing to Nick before we came down to do the show, is you look at every year once these playoff brackets are set up and you're like, hey, I didn't realize that these teams were able to make the postseason, and then they do, and then the inevitable happens. But, if I was one of those kids, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's cool to play in the playoffs, but do you want to go to the playoffs just because and then get embarrassed in the playoffs? I personally would not. I'd rather have my season end and be like, all right, we tried our best. We'll do better next year. So I'm liking the changes here. Kevin, I think we need to put together a compilation of all your times talking about this and do the whole black and white thing and just fade the edges and just do a whole little vignette
I think
of
it's
your time and an in memoriam of your complaints about the high school league provisions.
It's a special 2-hour episode that we're working on, and I know producer Nick is putting all those
Don't
together.
say that. They'll
as
do
we
it.
Speak. Nick's gonna do it. That's 2 hours. I've been talking about this a lot.
Nick says absolutely
I wanted to
not.
go through a little bit more of this. Well, Nick's going to do it anyway because that's how it works. I put it in his brain now. Now
else
he's
is he
going
gonna
to get
do
it
this
out. He's
summer?
going to have to do it. I've got some plans. Don't you worry about it. A couple other things I wanted to go through. The way the brackets are going to be built from now on, the first place teams from a region are going to be towards the top, and then the second place finishers will get in. After that, you're talking about going by the RPI, which is what Max Preps is going to be in charge of taking care of. So, I mean, really, there's no kind of good way to go about it because each region is different. You know, there's stronger regions and softer regions, and that's just kind of the way the things are going to break down sometimes. And it's not completely fair, but I think this is a much better system of how we're going to go about it. Like I said, the RPI system is going to determine those lower schools that get in. Buys for the top 8 teams in a 24 bracket. When you have a 28-team bracket, there's going to be no buys, so I'm looking forward to that as well, Julia.
You just had an earthquake over in your newsroom for a second. We thought we were going to lose you. But all right, let me set up this question, guys. As we're seeing things change at the high school level, will the rosters be right on Max Preps next year?
Absolutely not. Never.
No, everyone,
Never.
never.
Ever.
Let's just
No.
we're putting out
Half
a public
the time,
service
a coach
announcement
is like
right
from
now.
4 years ago on there.
Yeah. Public service announcement. If we ever get somebody's player's name wrong, know that it wasn't our doing. Somebody put that roster up there and we were wrong in trusting it. But that would be my one. I'll get on my soapbox for this. Update your rosters, please. I'm begging.
I mean, that should be one of the provisions with Max Preps being in charge of this now, is that if you don't have your full roster and if everyone's not right, you lose RPI points.
We got the Billadoo Bill. That'll be the Westerman way. I need it.
That's the next thing we're going to jump on now, is that your rosters have to be up to date or else you lose RPI points and your playoff seeding goes down.
All right, Teagan, what's your thing that you want?
All right. Here's my soapbox. Scores. If I am going on Max Preps and the game ended 25 minutes ago and there is no final score on there, and I have to scour Twitter and I find 4 different answers on there, and I call the athletic director at 10:30 at night and he's not answering, I cannot say your school's score on TV. Sorry. No highlights for you guys. I don't know the final score. So please update the score. Do it during the game.
Please.
Designate a person who's doing it quarterly. Make a Twitter. Tweet about the game. Give me updates. Give me highlights.
You want to know what we used
That's
to do when I was
soapbox.
working in Alabama? Is my sports director at my station I worked at in college would have us call non-emergency lines and ask them for the high school scores. And it would work.
Oh
But I don't want to get to that point, guys.
You know what we used to do in Texas, and this was before, we had social media. This is 25 years ago. We would call the 7-Eleven on the corner in these random towns and just call up and say, does anyone know the score of the football game? And since there was no place for them to hang out, you're either going there or you're going to Sonic. We would call
Texas,
those places and say, does anyone there know the score of the football game? Exactly. And so that's how we did it. If the coach wasn't picking up his phone, you would call the 7-Eleven and say, does anyone there know the football score? And they would just shout into the score, does anyone know? And 10 people would say, yeah, it was 28-7. And that's where we would go.
All right, guys.
That's
We'll
fantastic.
continue this into the future. This can be a weekly topic during the summer, but for now we got to take a break.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We tried to convince producer Nick during the break to let us complain more about Max Preps, and he said no. So now we have to talk about baseball.
We must move on.
We're going to start out with Coastal Carolina. We have to move on. I wish we could continue on our soapbox, but instead we're stepping on the diamond. Coastal Carolina getting ready to play Wake Forest tonight, looking for the season sweep. They already beat them twice this year, and the Chants have been on a hot streak in all aspects of their season. They've got just 9 losses overall, and then in conference play, 2 losses on the year, one of which did happen this weekend against Arkansas State in the series finale. But Coastal Carolina still at the top of those standings, and then Southern Miss, of course, another strong Sun Belt team. I believe they are 4th in those standings, which is kind of interesting looking at the whole Sun Belt outlook for them. But Coastal Carolina looking for that big win over Wake Forest tonight, and they are still without Cam Flukie, Hayden Johnson, and Trace Mazan. Of course, Trace Mazan, one of their best batters, and Flukie and Johnson, both 2 of their best pitchers. Both of them are hoping to make that comeback in Week 11. And guys, I'll be honest, I've already lost track of time. I think we're in Week 9 or 10 right now. If anybody can confirm that for me, I'd appreciate it. But I know we're getting closer, Julia, and I also know the Gamecocks are looking for another big win, but of course they're also looking for consistency.
Hey, that confirmation on time is not going to come from me. I hardly know what day, hour, year it is. I'm jumping back in it. But hey, so are the Gamecocks, because we talked about this yesterday a good bit. Just what a great weekend they had out in Missouri, sweeping the Tigers. It was their first SEC series sweep since 2024, so a little over 2 years since the last time they were able to do that, and just a super big confidence boost as they move into this back half of the season. Of course, not everything going their way. They're still trying to find their identity and just who they're going to be as they close out this year. But what better way to do it than to win 3 games against an SEC opponent and then get to come back home for 9 straight games? So they host Davidson tonight for a midweeker, and then they have Mississippi State coming to town this weekend. Of course, the Bulldogs are a highly ranked baseball program, and they will be a tough test, but their Gamecocks are proving that they can figure things out, and they're really starting to hit their groove. And of course, when you look at Saturday's series finale against the Tigers, they had 4 home runs in that one. Dawson Harmon had 2. He had an outstanding day, and interim head coach Monty Lee was just impressed across the board.
It's great to see Dawson be able to have a day like that, and Craddock hit the home run there late in the ball game. So used the long ball, we swung the bats well. I think we had maybe 11 hits or something, scored 6 runs, and boy, we just hung on right there at the end. We certainly made it interesting, but I was proud of the guys the way we played today, and it's great to get a sweep on the road and hopefully get some great momentum going into next week.
All right, guys, let me pose this. Kevin, what do we think the ceiling is for the Gamecocks at this point in the season?
Ceiling, like the tippy top ceiling, is you're probably talking 500 in the SEC and win a couple of games in the SEC tournament, make a little bit of noise, and then have things end. I'd say that's about the best, and it's not because of how they're playing or anything we've seen so far, but I think they're just in such a big hole at this point. I don't know that we can expect much more than that, Teagan.
Yeah, I don't know if they can dig themselves out of the hole that they got to in the beginning of the season. I know that, when Monty Lee took over and he got a couple of those big ranked wins, of course, Gamecocks fans had a little bit of hope there, but this is still the team we started out with this year. In my brain, it kind of just feels like a rebuilding time. Like after this season, they really need to sit down as an athletic administration and think about the coaching decisions they're making, Julia.
Absolutely. But Kevin, there's a little bit more baseball going down in the Low Country tonight and the rest of this week.
Yeah, a couple of games tonight as well. The College of Charleston, kind of in a similar spot as South Carolina. They've been underachieving so far this season, but they're coming off a sweep at home this weekend against North Carolina A&T. They're back in action this evening over at Patriots Point. They'll take on USC Upstate. That's a USC Upstate team that Charleston Southern took 2 out of 3 from on the road this past weekend. CSU is also home tonight. They're taking on crosstown rivals, the Citadel. The Citadel coming off getting swept this past weekend up at Wofford, but they had midweek wins last week against Winthrop and against Charleston Southern. This one over at CSU, so the Bucks looking to turn things around on the Bulldogs tonight. Also want to mention Clemson. They're going up to Charlotte this evening for a matchup against the 49ers. That's coming off losing 2 out of 3 against North Carolina this past weekend. We're going to be right back to wrap up this episode of Palmetto Sports Daily right after this.
we're getting ready to wrap up this episode of Palmetto Sports Daily, but we can't end the show without talking about the Myrtle Beach Pelicans home opener finally happening today after a 9-game road stretch for the Birds. And this is the very first game they will play in their newly renovated stadium, about $20 million worth of renovations in the stadium. And I actually have not gotten the chance to explore it yet because I was covering Coastal both of the days that they were giving tours of the stadium. So I'm excited to see it tonight. They'll host the Kannapolis Cannonballers, which is a very unique name, guys. And during the break, we were talking all about some other unique names in minor league baseball. Of course, the Florence Yalls. And I threw out the fun fact that once a year, Syracuse is the Syracuse Salt Potatoes. So I am curious if you guys could name, yes, the Salt Potatoes. Yep, because Syracuse is famous for their salt. There's a whole history thing behind it. Anyways, I'm curious what you guys would name a minor league baseball team if you could name them anything. Kevin, we'll start with you.
I'm going actually back to the Kannapolis team that Myrtle Beach is playing tonight, and I would make them go back to the Intimidators because it is the worst rebrand we've had in minor league baseball in the last 2 decades. Going from Intimidators to Cannonballers, whoever came up with this idea should be just drug out into the street because the Intimidators was the coolest thing you could have had, having Dale Earnhardt tied to this team, and to take that away for no apparent reason, I'm still very angry about it, Julia.
See, I want to lean into just the full ridiculousness of it because I brought up the Amarillo Sod Poodles. What an excellent name. The Rocket City Trash Pandas. I feel like you just got to go with something out there. Like, I don't know, give me a city.
Hartford.
Albany.
No.
Oh, okay.
Rest in peace to the Whalers. But
You said a city.
I need to.
You said give you a city.
I know, I'm just coming up with the Ponca City ankle bracelets.
You got 15
That's what
seconds,
we'll do.
Julia, come on.
What? I'm going with the Denver Dachshunds. I want a dog as the mascot for the team. We gotta go. That's it. Bye, guys.